Hello, my name is Sarah Macias, and I will be discussing my final action research report submitted to my Leadership 596 Applied Research course completed through Azusa Pacific University. This presentation will entail literature review, the methodology in which I chose to use, and the results that I have compiled through focusing on Title IX, the NCAA, the representation of females in sport, the experiences of female coaches, the academic success of student athletes, and the athlete perception. This study was designed to assess the perceptions that female student athletes have excelled on and off the field, along with in the classroom, but yet research has suggested possible explanations for decline of females in college athletic leadership roles. Therefore, the purpose of this study is to gain an understanding as to why female student athletes do not pursue a career in collegiate athletic leadership roles once they graduate college. On slide 4, I have inserted a map as a visual of the NCAA institutions spread throughout the country, showing how much college athletics is a part of this country. The organization that I work with prides itself on being a softball organization dedicated to the development of young athletes in a positive, structured, and safe environment, which is why I find this research so valuable. When you speak with the young women playing under the organization, they will share with you that their ultimate goal as an athlete is to play softball in college and earn a degree. However, if you were to speak with young men their same age, they will share with you that from a very young age, they've always dreamt of their sport playing a role in the rest of their lives. The difference in the young men and women's goals perhaps stems from the development and evolution of female sports. Historians have largely failed to recognize early college sports for women because the competition occurred within a single college and its students, known as intramurals, rather than between institutions, known as extramurals. Since 1972, Title IX, known as the New Wave of Feminism within the broader social reforms sought by the Civil Rights Movement, moved women closer to legislative action for greater equal treatment in athletics. Title IX slide 5 represents what I looked through and what I researched and what we know as of right now. Women's involvement in sports has been slow to develop. Opportunities for participation and recognition were almost non-existent for centuries. It was not until the advent of the equal rights movements and Title IX that women truly found a place as participants in the world of sport in the public arena. When Title IX passed, it proved that there was no shortage of interest by females in participating in athletics. When Title IX first enacted, female participation in high school athletics skyrocketed by almost 900%, disproving claims made by the opponents of Title IX that the lower numbers of female athletes are due to lack of interest as opposed to lack of opportunity. The NCAA, which I have previously mentioned, is the major I didn't previously mention it, but it is the major governing body for intercollegiate athletics. More than 1,200 colleges and universities are members of the NCAA. The NCAA stands for the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and it is a nonprofit organization whose revenue in 2012-2013 was a mere $912 million. In 1981 to 1982, women's championships became a part of the NCAA program. Today, the NCAA sponsors 40 women's championships, 38 men's championships, and 3 combined championships in all 3 of its levels. As a whole, the graduation rate for the student athletes was 58.15% compared to a graduation rate of 58.62 for all undergraduate students. Therefore, overall, female student athletes outperformed male athletes with a graduation rate of 67.51% compared to 52.46 for male athletes. Not only do female athletes exceed their male counterparts' graduation rate, but also have a higher percentage of graduation than non-NCAA athletes. An area where female athletes differ from men is in their pursuit of an advanced degree. Female athletes do not only prove to excel in undergraduate, but also earn advanced degrees more often than non-athlete students. Similar to females' undergraduate rates, the percentage of female athletes receiving a master's or higher education degree are higher than students in general. 32% of athletes earn masters compared to the 28% of the public student body. When examining the salaries of men and women when examining the salaries of male and female coaches of university athletics, women coaches of women's basketball teams are paid more than men who coach the women's teams. However, when looking at the salaries of men who coach male teams is almost double of the coaches of women's teams. This is, in effect, lowers the earning potential for women considerably, since head coaches positions of men's teams are almost guaranteed to men due to the higher hiring practices along with disproportionate ratios shown by the NCAA 2012 gender report. When the dominant group, men, only allow people who hold characteristics similar to them in their circle of influence, it produces a closed network for women. This closed network creates a barrier for women known as good old boys club, where men continue to hire and promote males over females. Even though the opportunity to coach both male and female teams has increased, more men have crossed over to coach female teams than women have not crossed over to coach male teams. Historically, the number of women coaching male sports within the NCAA has remained between a 2 to 3%. However, most of the females that are coaching men in the collegiate level are coaching combined men's and women's teams, such as cross country, track, or swim and dive, as opposed to exclusively coaching males. Female coaches have accepted the coaching field as men's turf in their own status as one of the outsiders. Manley, Greenless, Thielwell, and Smith stated that previous research showed both male and female athletes prefer to be coached by men. The goal of the research conducted is to draw conclusions from data and find relatable themes between the results literature review previously presented. The data collected will be interpreted through the use of role congruity theory, formerly addressed in literature review, to essentially assess what student athletes' perceptions are in regards to coaches. In order to do so, I put together a proficient survey. In order to create a proficient survey, I narrowed down my target audience within the 3 levels of NCAA competition by specifying my research to a Division II institution. I believe my results will speak for the average student athlete who has more of a sense of balance between sports and academia, whereas Division I is heavier on athletics and Division III is heavier on academics. So Division II is a fine line in between the two of those divisions. The survey conducted was made up of 25 males and 25 females. The study was distributed by email to student athletes enrolled at a Division II NCAA institution in the Midwest with an undergraduate enrollment of about 3,500. The college competes in 11 NCAA Division II sports, consisting of 5 men's sports and 6 women's sports. To clarify whether or not males and females enter college as a student athlete with similar motives, I asked the subjects both why they chose to compete in the college level and what they hope to get out of their student athlete experience. I sought to answer this question through a series of 6 questions. Most answered by either yes or no, such as, would you drop out of college to pursue a career as a professional athlete? Was your coach in youth sport of the opposite sex? Did you currently play for the opposite sex in college? Would you be attending your current school if it weren't for the sport you play? Would you be attending college at all if it weren't for the sport? Did you play a sport to get to college, or did you go to college to continue playing your sport? After graduating college, do you plan to pursue a career in sports? When asked if their coach in youth sports was of the opposite sex, 90% of females replied yes, whereas none of the males ever played for somebody of the opposite sex in the youth sports, leaving only 10% of women to say that they have played for another woman in youth sports. When the subjects were asked if they had ever been if they were currently being coached in college by the opposite sex, 95% of females replied yes. And again, males share that they had never played for a woman in college, leaving only 5% of women playing for a woman currently in college. When asked if they would be attending their current school if they weren't for the sport they play, 25 of the females said that they would be attending the school whether they play in the sport or not, whereas only 10% of the men share that they would be at the school currently if they weren't playing the sport. When asked if they would be in school if they weren't for the sports, when asked if they would even be in school in general, just college, in general, if it weren't for the sport they play, 98% of the women responded that they would still be in school no matter if they played or not, whereas only 35% of the men said that they would still be in school if it weren't for sports. Pardon me. When asked the subjects if they played sport to get to college or did they go to college to play a sport, 60% of the females and 65% of the males shared that they played the sport in order to get to college, whereas 40% of the females and 15% of the males went to college to play their sport. 20% of the men decided not to answer this question. The results of the study display that female athletes look at their collegiate careers and experiences as a stepping stone towards a successful career following college, whereas the men see their college experiences as the first step towards a career in sports. And the findings inevitably prove previous research. Female coaches have a ways to go in terms of making their presence known within college athletics, whether they're coaching a female team or a mixed gender team like track or swim. The results of the study examining athletes' coaching experience along with it, whether or not they themselves would pursue a career in sports, confirms previous literature review about them. In order for the tides to shift, women should first take up coaching at a lower level where they can develop and grow and be an example for those that they are coaching. My proposed intervention is that everything has a beginning, and for most collegiate athletes, it started while competing in youth sports, where they built their athletic foundation. To change the mindset of college student athletes, I find that it would be most beneficial to take a step back and refocus on where every athlete started, which is youth sports. As we shift our focus to youth sports, we must keep in mind that the club teams, where student athletes are just sponges, they're there to absorb everything we hear, or everything they hear, ultimately translates into their college experience and post-college experience. The results show that the male to female coach ratio noticeably drastic, which leads me to believe that as the female student athletes continue to graduate, it is up to the college graduates to return to where they once started and be a visible example for young women who strive to become college athletes as they once were. Unfortunately, there is not much that can be done to completely stop the negative stereotypes held towards female coaches, which is limiting the growth within sport. I believe that once female graduates return to their youth sports, it could be the first step in more women choosing to pursue a career in college athletics. I believe more young women see female leaders and as their coaches, they will be more likely to become one themselves. And I would like to thank you for listening to this presentation, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.